Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. So today I'm talking about Pilates and rhythm, right? So I had a question. Somebody asked me sorry, I'm pouring some water because my throat's a little dry. Somebody asked me if my rhythm was part of the Pilates Principles, right? And when they were talking about that, they're really talking about Gail Eisen and Philip Friedman's principles, not Joe's, because Joe's principle was basically do the exercise the way I say to do the exercise. That was pretty much his principle. When Gail Eisen and Philip Friedman wrote their book and published it in, I believe it was 1980, they had 6 principles, and they were Ramana students, and they worked with her a lot, and she liked those principles, so we put them in the training manual, which is the classical Pilates training, right? When you call classical, it basically was, that term came from Ramana's training, and that's just part of that. So when you look at it, there's the 6, right? The 6 different principles, right? It's centering, concentration, control, precision, breath, and flow. And rhythm is mentioned in one. Anybody know? Hi, Elaine. Hi, Alexandra, MK, and Fernando. So it's in breathing, right? Because think about it. When we look at rhythm, what is it? What's the process, right? And it's basically, it's about patterns, right? And when we look at Pilates, so it's not. So one of the questions was it one of the principles? And no, it's not. It's part, and it's really part of everything we do in Pilates. So I'm going to talk about that, and where does it come from, and how does it manifestate in our work? One of the things that we need to think about is, rhythm is about patterns, right? And there's different ways of doing patterns and different ways of having those patterns in how we do what we do. There's patterns in the exercises. There's patterns in the breathing. There's patterns in our voice. So there's lots of different things we can think about. One of the things that's clear, though, is where it's not, and rhythm is not generated by the apparatus itself, right? The apparatus is equipment, right? And it only works with outside influence, right? You have to do something to the apparatus to make it work. And so you give it the rhythm, right? It's the rhythm coming from you, which is also the practitioner, the person that's doing the exercise, but it's also the teacher, because the teacher helps you understand what the pattern is, right? And every exercise has its own specific pattern and its own specific breathing, right? So those are the things we do. And when we look at rhythms, there's different types, right? There's like regular, if you look at the definition of rhythm, okay, there's regular, there's alternating, there's progressive, right? Flowing and random, right? Those are like the basic foundations, right? So there's different ways. And when we think about it in Pilates, we have regular rhythm, right? There's a flow, there's a consistency. It's progressive, and we have progressive rhythms within each exercises, right? In most exercises, right? It's flowing, and but flowing, it's interesting because that flowing is one of the principles, right? So there's all this interchange. There's when we look at movement and we look at timing, right? Because rhythm is about timing as well. When we exercise, that's part of it. It's how do we flow through that movement? How do we do different things? There is some randomness in Pilates, because when somebody learns and exercises, they don't always have it down right. So if they come in and what they remember and what it was and what you taught them, it's not all the same. So there's a little random variations in every session, I think, pretty much as well. Okay. So the other things to think about, is there a beat? And when we talk about the beat or the tempo, the intensity, the pitch, right, the accent, all the things that I'm talking about. So I can start to talk very, very slow, right? So there's different things that we can do. But I could also talk a lot faster. So the rhythm will change in relationship to that, Okay, but there's also prosody. It's prosody, which is a term, is rhythm stress. It's the stress and the intonation of your speech. That really comes from speech therapy, and it's one of the things, right? And what that does, it provides a prosody is what's the emotion? Am I upset? Am I happy? Right? What is it? What's that process? And that has a rhythm as well. And when we're teaching, that transposes into the client and the understanding and the information that they're receiving, and it affects how they do what they do in their exercise and their work, right? So it's something that can happen, right? And again, am I teaching it? Do I ask questions? Is it a command? Am I being ironic? Me? Never. I'm never. Or sarcastic? Wait, where is it? I have something here. Where's my... Oh, it's not easily... Where did I put it? Oh, well. Well, I have a little sign that talks about sarcastic. But anyways. So, right, what's the emphasis? The contrast is what's the focus? All those things affect the rhythm. Oh, and the timing, okay, and how we do things, right? So it's the speed and the cadence. Again, what's my speed? What's my cadence? How do I say my sentences? How do I say and explain the cues and the exercises? So all those different things that we need to start to think about. But then when we think about rhythm in movement, right? So that was voice. That's the teacher. That's for the teacher. Now the client, what do we do? And when we look at Joe's system, right, Joe's way, and Joe's contrology, what is it that he was teaching us? He's teaching us how to move. And how do we move in life? We walk, we run, we hop, right? We skip, gallop, right? I guess not really gallop. I guess that's more horses. But, those are the things. We slide, we can slide around. We can do all sorts of different movement things, okay? And that's also related to rhythm, right? And how we do those things, the coordination of that, right? So what do we do? How do we do that? And how do we teach that? So by using our voice and using all the different things we do with our voice and also our own bodies to show, right? Because that's part of it. How do we facilitate that rhythm? We can also facilitate that rhythm by doing hands-on. And I see recently more and more now people are talking more and more about the hands-on, but it's something that Romano always taught. Classical Pilates is, if somebody's not doing hands-on, they're not teaching classical, and they're also not pretty much teaching the way Joe taught. So if they say it's Pilates, which could be anything goes Pilates, but if they're trying to say that they're really doing what Mr. Pilates did or what Romana did, and they're not doing hands-on, they're not being accurate. Okay, so that's part of it as too, right? So when we look at the rhythm and we look at the exercise for all these things we do in life, what does Joe's system do? Right? It enhances what? Our coordination. The rhythm enhances coordination and timing, right? Because that's what it's about, and that's what we're doing in the exercises. And when we do those in those developmental organic sequencings of movement that we all have and have all done, well, pretty much have all done, most of us have. And if we haven't, you're going to provide that to the people who miss parts of it, right? If somebody's walking, they've gone through a basic developmental sequence and an organic learning process that is hardwired into the system. And Joe system finds a way to sort of bring that back into life, because we stop doing it once we start walking and doing things. But to put it back in the foundations, that's one of the things that he does, right? And so when we look at rhythm, right, part of that, if we're talking about enhancing coordination and timing, that pattern and that consistency helps facilitate that over time, right? And it doesn't happen in a session. It happens multiple sessions, right? So when we're looking at the motor skills, right, skills for motor, which is about walking and gait and all the things that we do is running and hopping and all those different types of things. If we want to be able to get back to that, then we do these exercises the way he says to do it. Joe's true, right, his true way of doing his full manifestation in the exercises, and that's his principle. Right? Do it the way I say to do it. And if we do those things, you get those benefits. You get that motor control efficiency and movement efficiency, right? It starts to put that efficiency back into the system. And it helps you improve your performance and all the other things that you do. Okay, both in stability and mobility, right? Because what a lot of people do today in our environment is a sitting environment. And if it's a sitting environment, we need to strengthen as much the stability component of what our muscle engines can do, as well as the mobility component, right? And Pilates does that because half the time we're stabilizing one part, moving another part, and then we switch and we're going back and forth. So when you have your, half hour to 45, 50-minute session, you've probably spent 25 to 30 minutes doing what? Stability work as much as you did mobility work, but for all the muscles, right? Remember, when you take a step, right? 1, 2, right? Right leg, then left leg. How many muscles are working just in the legs, right? And then how many in the spine? So you're talking hundreds of muscles that are always working to take us to 2 steps. So when anybody talks about, you got to work this muscle or cue that muscle or, cue the core or cue the... It's not how the brain works. It's not how the nervous system works. It's not how we're organized for movement and function, right? And part of that is the rhythm. So the rhythm helps us learn that process, and it's progressive, and it takes time, and that's something that we do with Joe, right? That's something, if you're practicing classical and Joe's work, that's what you're really starting to do, okay? So that's pretty much my AMAP for today, okay? It's basically, yes, is it one of the principles? It's not one of the named principles, but it's a factor in a multiple of those, okay? So it's integrated. And it's not, and again, is it part of Joe's principle? Yeah, because you do it the way he says to do it. And when you do that, what do you have? You have that rhythm, right? You have tempo. You have beats, you have regular, you have, flowing, you have progressive, you do all these different things. And you even have some random, because people are random. I mean, they're never perfect and exact. One of the ways I always like to explain that, when I was an athletic trainer in college, there was no dance medicine, so I had to go through sports, and the closest to sports there was to dance was gymnastics. And so when I took care of the gymnasts, and who wins the gold medal, right? Who wins the medal at in the competitions? The person who is consistent, right? And what does that take? That takes, it's regular, it's progressive, it's flowing, and it's a pattern, and they have that pattern down really good. But there's also, when you would watch these you watch any athlete perform, especially, like gymnastics, sometimes it's very random because they're not perfect, they're not exact, they don't reproduce everything the same time. They hit it this time, next time they don't. But the ones who hit it more often are the ones who are regular. The ones who are random, every once in a while they get lucky and they did it, right? And they weren't at the top of their form, right? They're not the ones who were the medal winners. So that's part of it. And everybody, that doesn't mean they were bad. They're great people. They just, their nervous system and the way they trained and what they did was not the same as others. And so, and it's about how much time and energy and effort you put into it. So again, how do you build those patterns? So we're able to do all that with Pilates. Joe's way, Joe's contrology. It works. And Ramana's way as well. Because yes, Ramana did change a few things, for safety and a couple other issues. But the majority of it was pretty much what Joe taught. And we also know that Joe didn't change a lot of things over periods of time. There's plenty of photo shoots that are, decades apart, and the exercise look almost exactly the same. Slight differences, especially when he got older, because, again, your body at 80, it does not look like your body at 45 or 50. And you can do more 30 years before than you can do later for most. But he could still do what most 20-year-olds couldn't do when he was 80. Because he did his system. All right, I'm going off on tangents again. So thanks for joining me. A couple things. Every Tuesday, I teach my Balanceology class from 12:30 to 1. It is not a Pilates class. It's about balance work, so we're focusing on balance. It's the last thing we gain and the first thing we start to lose, and we get a lot of that in Pilates. But I have a lot of things that I do that takes it a couple steps further, specifically for balance. Then at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays, I teach my arm spring leg springs, which is based on the resistor posters, the 2 resistor posters that you can get on in the Etsy, my Etsy store, Pilates posters on Etsy, and a few archival things as well. And then we have coming up I've just announced in July 13th, it's a Sunday, from 1 to 5 in Beckett at the Pilates Museum. I'm going to be doing a Ramana tapes on the upper back and shoulders. So, and it's limited to only 6 people, so you need to email me if you're interested. And it's spgpt@pilates-studio-ny.com. And if you're interested and you want to come to Beckett and do a little tour of the, get the museum and all that as well, and do a little Ramana tape, send me an email. Okay, the cost is $250 for the workshop. It's 2 hours of, it's 4 hours, and there's 2 hours of Ramana, pretty much 2 hours of Ramana teaching, and we don't do it all at once. We break it up. So she teaches a little bit, and then we go and practice and look at the cues and talk about it and experience it, and then we do more. So, that's one of the things that I'm doing. I'm going to try to start doing a little bit more of the Ramana tapes because, I've been noticing a lot of people are talking about Ramana, and it's memories from 25 or 30 years ago, but this is Ramana teaching, right? So if you really want to hear her voice and see her and how she teaches, this is how you do it. And there is no virtual because Ramana did not want it to be videos, people learning from videos. That she didn't agree with that and didn't think that was the way it should be done. So I'm honoring her wishes, and so you have to, if you want to do it, you come and we do it hands-on. Watch her and then do hands-on so that you get that information. Okay, I think that's it. That's good enough. All right, so I'll see you. And again, if you have questions, please DM me, send me a question. I will answer it here. I try to do it every Friday. There's sometimes I have to miss every once in a while, but pretty much, keep a lookout. If this time doesn't work, or you have other people that you think that would want to watch it, they can also go. You can go to the Pilates Source YouTube channel, and there's a playlist for AMAP, and I have all my AMAPs on. There's over 30 now, getting close to 40. So if it's something so there's lots of other things that I've discussed and talked about and looked into. So go and check them out as well. All right, and then please, if you like that, on the YouTube, do the little thumbs up and the follow us and subscribe. It would be appreciated. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you next time.